Hello again. One of the many things which irritate me about Black History Month is the fact that it focuses exclusively on the interests of people of African origin while ignoring the wider question of minorities and their achievements. This is a very important point because for most ethnic minorities, in any field, it is their achievements which matter and their recognition in that field rather than their ethnicity. In other words, they are content to be seen as great mathematicians, physicists, writers, and so on, not as specifically Indian physicists, Jewish writers, or Chinese mathematicians. Their ethnicity has little or nothing to do with their sense of achievement. It's being a good writer, among other good writers, which counts, or being one of the best physicists in the world, rather than simply being a good Indian physicist. We saw this clearly illustrated when a statue in Wales was unveiled recently to a black headmistress. There was no suggestion that she was anything remarkable when compared with other headmistresses. The only significant point was that she had been a black headmistress. Now, other people from ethnic minorities have faced and do face a lot of prejudice, and they've had to struggle against it. It's just that we don't hear too much about that. We only hear about the prejudice which black people have had to overcome, and it's always advanced as an explanation for why they have not done as well as anybody else. I want to look at one field, physics, to show what I mean here, just to make the point. I think many people will have heard of Richard Feynman, the physicist who worked on the first atomic bomb and won a Nobel Prize for his work on quantum electrodynamics. He also solved the riddle of the Challenger space shuttle disaster in 1986. Let me quote from the Wikipedia page about his admission to Princeton University. He attained a perfect score on the graduate school entrance exams to Princeton University in physics, an unprecedented feat, and an outstanding score in mathematics. The head of the physics department there, Henry D Smythe, had another concern, writing to Philip M. Morse to ask, "Is Feynman Jewish? We have no definite rule against Jews, but have to keep their proportion in our department reasonably small because of the difficulty in placing them." Morse conceded that Feynman was indeed Jewish, but reassured Smythe that Feynman's physiognomy and manner, however, show no trace of this characteristic. At that time, most American universities had quotas to restrict the number of Jews they would admit. It really is not the case that it is only black people who have had to struggle to overcome racial prejudice to get on in the world. What about the person who discovered the theoretical basis for black holes? Subramanian Chandrasekhar was 25 years old in 1935 when he presented to the Royal Society in London the results of his calculations about what happened to white dwarf stars with large masses. That is to say, they collapse and essentially disappear. The first time that the idea of black holes has been mooted. He may be seen in the thumbnail to this video. The British scientific establishment was contemptuous of his ideas, largely because he was Indian. It was racial prejudice at work. He moved to the United States and was later awarded a Nobel Prize for his work on the structure of stars. Another scientist who had to overcome racial prejudice to get on in his chosen field, where he reached the very top. One final example might be enough to make the point. The 1979 Nobel Prize for Physics went to Sheldon Glashow, Abdus Salim and Steven Weinberg for their work in unifying the electromagnetic force and the weak nuclear force. 2 Jews and a Pakistani Muslim, ethnic minorities who have historically faced a lot of racial prejudice. I'm wondering what would have happened in the 1930s and 1940s if people like Richard Feynman and Subramanian Chandrasekhar had given up physics on encountering racial prejudice and instead focused their attention on starting an Indian History Month or a Jewish History Month. They didn't, of course. They simply redoubled their efforts to become great scientists. I can offhand think of half a dozen Jewish scientists and another half dozen who are from India or Pakistan, and some from Japan and China as well. I cannot, however, think of a single black Nobel Prize winner in the field of science. Why is that? Can it really be the case that all the black physicists, mathematicians, chemists, doctors and biologists have all been prevented from reaching the top of the field by systemic racism? Or might there be another reason? In short, is Black History Month a massive and deliberate decoy to distract attention from the real explanation of a state of affairs where every other ethnic minority other than black people managed to get by well enough without their own special month? As usual, I provide links to information about what I've been saying in the description to this video.